Welcome to GouldFish on Games, where we all know cheaters never prosper, but they do get some of the cooler gadgets, such as today's bit of hardware for the Game Boy, the Pro Action Replay. Made by the British company Dattel Electronics in the early 90s, this is the original UK release. Amazingly, the US got two versions of this, as it was sold as the Pro Action Replay with an updated box art as we've come to expect, but also as the GameShark, as it was licensed by Interact, who initially sold it as is, but then made changes to it over the years to keep improving it. Inside the box we get two manuals, the first of which is the instruction manual, which is printed on some very cheap paper, but it does do a very good job of explaining the hardware and its features. The second has a list of cheat codes and is printed on much better paper, but they really could have found more codes, as it doesn't even come close to filling this book. And finally we have the cart itself. The front has a slot which takes the game you want to cheat on, and along the top we have a switch and a button. The switch enables and disables the cheats, and the button is used for the Pro Action. Yes, this is a professional cheat device, as not only did it allow you to use the predefined cheat codes, but it also had software built in that allowed you to find your own cheats. To use the device, you would connect your cart into the slot in some hot cart-on-cart action, and then plug the whole thing into your Game Boy. And if you think it looks a little flimsy, then you'd be correct, as it can take a number of attempts to get the game to boot correctly, and it's also possible that you can knock the cart in use and hang the system, so you really have to be quite careful while using it. And rather than having to get the lighting just right to film the Game Boy, let's use a SNES and the Super Game Boy, which I had to remove the front of the case as it was putting too much pressure on the cart. And if you get a clean connection of the two carts and the hardware, then you get a nice boot, and you'll quickly know if this isn't correct because you'll end up getting a corrupted Nintendo logo. The first thing you will see is this bit of text telling us in no uncertain terms that this is not a licensed device by Nintendo, but once you get past that you get the code input screen. The codes themselves are made up of three parts. The first byte is the code type, the second byte is the value we want to set, and the last two bytes is the address that we're going to change. And these are all stored in hex format, so go from 00 to FF. So let's test this with the original Super Mario Land, and if we look in the book we can find we have a few cheats, including one for infinite lives. And as we enter the code we can tell that we're using code type 01, and we're going to be putting the value of 02 into the memory location of 15DA. So after starting the game and then enabling the cheat device by moving the switch, we can test it out. And as you can see, when we die, the game tries to reduce our number of lives, but the action replay will set it back to the value that we provided. So no matter how many times we die, we will always have the same number of lives. And because we understand how the code system works, we can actually tweak it. So instead of saying having 3 lives all the time, we can change that number to say 9, and when we die, we'll now have 9 lives. Or in this instance it actually says 8, because Mario Land always shows you having one less number of lives than the stored value. And it's not just lives that this thing can tweak. With a code we can always have the fireball. Or, if we play Tetris, there's actually a cheat that will always give us the same part. Now just using the cheats is only half of what this device can do. With the press of this button we can reset the game and enter the trainer, and this is what we'll use to find our own cheats. So say that we only got the cartridge and didn't have the codebook, and we still wanted to have unlimited lives in Mario Land. Well, we can start the game and note down the number of lives we got, which starts off as 2, and then we can hit the button. And when the trainer comes up we can select lives or known value. With this we can tell the device that it should search the RAM for the value that we're providing, which in this case we know is 2, and it will keep a record of all the memory locations that hold that value. And then we can start the game again and kill Mario. With the number of lives reduced, we can then hit the reset button again and continue the trainer, and we tell it what the new value is. It will then compare all the memory locations that it already took a record of to see if any of them have changed to the new value. We then need to repeat this a number of times with different number of lives, and eventually, if we are lucky, it will find just a single memory location that has changed each time. And thankfully, this time we've been quite lucky, as the software tells us that only one memory location exists that matches everything that we've done. And unsurprisingly, it matches exactly what we found in the cheat book. We can apply that knowledge to just about any game that we might want to get unlimited lives in. Also, because we're just looking up a specific value, we can use that mode to find more than just life cheats. For example, in Metroid 2 we can use the very same approach to get unlimited rockets. So again, we just note down the number of rockets we start with, then use some up, and rinse and repeat. But due to how Metroid 2 was made, it won't be able to find just a single code. In this instance, it's actually found 2 possibilities. At this point, you should write them both down and then test each one to see if any of them work, and in this situation the first one works perfectly. This tends to happen when a game might store a value in multiple memory locations, which can happen if the UI has its own copy, or if they're storing the value twice to do checks against. And for more difficult to find cheats, there are various other trainers that you can try to find the address, like the health bar, which allows you to search based on percentages. Or if all else fails, you have the slow but sure option, which usually will help you out, but you will need to spend far longer trying to go through all the different states that you possibly can so it can track down the one single address. But the provided manual is quite good at explaining how to use all the various features. Thankfully, most of the time, if you pick a wrong code, it'll just result in the game crashing or hanging pretty early on. Even though it was designed for the original Game Boy, it does work across the entire range. And it might have some issues in fitting into the Super Game Boy, it does work. And thankfully, doing it that way actually speeds everything up, as it takes far less time for the Super Game Boy to reset than the classic tank Game Boy. As we can see, the Game Boy Pocket looks pretty tidy with it attached. Though it's not as nice when it comes to the Game Boy Color, with that battery pack pushing the cart out, but if you get it just right, it does work. Later versions of the GameShark actually had taller carts that fixed this issue. Amazingly, it works pretty well with the Game Boy Advance SP, though it does stick out pretty badly. But it's not a perfect device. There are a few issues, such as the fact it doesn't play nice with all games. For example, Mario Land 2 and Wario Land. Just having it connected when playing Mario Land 2 results in a messed up world map, and Wario Land will pretty much crash every time you start the game. I'm not sure if this is an unintentional result of how the games were made, or if Nintendo put some code to block the device, but it does seem to run pretty fine with later games like Donkey Kong Land and Pokemon Yellow. Now, I do like trainer devices like this, as it meant you could find your own codes, which more felt like you were hacking the game rather than just cheating. And if you found any cool cheats using one of these devices in the past, please let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I was the GouldFish. That wasn't just action, it was pro action, and this was GouldFish on Games. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider checking out the trainer that will allow you to like, subscribe or share this video. Or you can use the cheat codes provided to check out other videos that you can find on the screen right now.